doing push-ups. I've been doing sit-ups. I've been doing chin-ups. I've been doing pull-ups. I threw up once, but I'm okay now.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to a Tuesday edition of the Ysn Power Hour. DJ Yoakley with you, and we've got a good show for you. A lot of conversation topics that we weren't able to get to yesterday. Want to get to today, certainly, and I want to get your take. So chime in on the Ysn inbox, the comments section, wherever you are, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Twitch, and on Twitter. And if you're watching, like my wife, on ysnlive.com, we appreciate the pages and we appreciate the silence. We're going to do the telepathic thing. And you just tell me what you want to talk about and what you think about the topics today, which a lot of it are going to have to do with divisional movement. So what I mean by that is we saw over the past 2 days, the past 48 hours, the OHSA coming down on people and saying, hey, you are no longer in this division. We're going to move you up. We're going to move you down. Whichever way we feel like we're going to move you, whether it be by the competitive balance or whether it be by your enrollment numbers for your boys or for your girls, this is your new home. And we're going to talk about that, why that makes sense, kind of, why that kind of makes sense, and some of the shifting that did happen over the last 48 hours. We'll have that for you. Thanks to our friends at Channel 21 WFMJ. But first, as we do each and every day, it's time to get your daily fix of On This Day in Sports History. So on this day in, in sports history, June 14th, in 2000, Greg Maddux makes his 387th putout, breaking Jack Morris's career record. So for those of you who are new school and you know, just young, let's just put it that way, just young, Greg Maddux, and I'm going to look his stats up as well, is one of the greatest pitchers of all time. And I mean that not just because I'm trying to just lambaste people or just to say it because I have my own show. So Greg Maddux was, in his career, 355 wins to 227 losses, an ERA of 3.16, appeared in 744 games, started 740 of them. He had 5,008 innings pitched, over 3,300 strikeouts, with a whip of 1.143. And the dude was not overpowering. Like, he didn't have I don't even think he had a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, maybe on a good day. But Greg Maddux could pinpoint the location of where he wanted the pitches to be. And if you're an Indians fan of yesteryear, 95, in that era, you know that he was not to be messed with. Greg Maddux was, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the best pitchers in that mid-90s, and then moving forward. Started out with the Cubs and ended up with the Braves, and I think he might have been on one other team. Let's see if they have that statistic. Teams: Arizona, Baltimore, Boston. I don't remember him being on Boston. Interesting. Don't remember that. No, that's not right. That's not right at all. What are we doing here? Yeah, Chicago, Atlanta, Chicago, Dodgers, Padres, and the Dodgers again. So, yeah, I don't know what I was looking at the first time. I apologize. So when you have a guy like Greg Maddux, he's the one I always tell the little leaguers, which we're going to get into their interviews in just a moment. But when you're thinking of, sorry about that. When you're thinking about Little League Baseball, you're not always going to have a kid that throws absolute fire. You're not going to have velo. But it doesn't stop you from having you being able to put the baseball where you want it, having that accuracy to be able to throw up and in or up and away or down and away, or, just being able to put the ball north, south, east, west a lot of times is way more important than being able to throw the ball 94, because it just depends on movement and things of that nature. So Greg Maddux is a guy that if you can go back and watch his highlights on YouTube and you're a young pitcher, probably somebody that you're going to want to check into. And if you're a dad or a mom out there that's watching this and saying, who's Greg Maddux? Look into it. And especially if your son's a pitcher or daughter's a pitcher, take away what he did and emphasize that, because you don't necessarily have to have a D1 arm to be special. You can be able to go, move the ball around the zone and away from the zone even to get putouts. And, on this day in sports history, Greg Maddux got his 387th, which broke the record of Jack Morris. So we had a interesting night last night on the Ball Diamond in Boardman. Interesting all across YSN, really, but especially in Boardman because it was the night before playoffs. And if you know and understand that as someone who would have coached before, or maybe you don't know kind of what goes into it, you don't want to burn your pitching. And there's a couple different ways that you can do this. And we saw both of the ways. We saw, a little bit of confidence from some teams to burn some of their pitching that they won't have to count on necessarily for the next couple days. And we saw the kind of shift work that some coaches adopt in a tournament where if you pitch over 20 pitches in Little League in a game, you have to sit out 2 days or whatever the rule may be. So last night we saw a ton of pitching changes on the network. We saw we had the first game, which was Coca's Pizza versus Remax, and one of the teams didn't have enough players, so they got one from the other because in the interest, and I did love this call, in the interest of the kids, it's always the right decision to play the game. And my buddy Chad Miller got called in and he said, here's what we got to do. This team, if you want to play, you have to give, a player on defense to the other team. And that's what happened. And they played, and it was a great game. And eventually Remax pulled away. Ricky Gozier, the leadoff man for Remax, went 3 for 3, a standout young man. He's a name that you're going to want to make sure that you tape to your refrigerator because he is a guy to watch as he comes up the ranks. So we had a chance to talk to Ricky after the game. Here's what he had to say. Ricky Gozier, your player of the game, an 11-1 win. You go 3 for 3. What was going on with the bat today, man? You had it going.
I just try to keep my eye on it. Teammates hit the ball really well, just trying to help out to the team.
One of those games where you almost didn't get played. You happy to get some hacks in before playoffs?
Yep.
What are you expecting from this team in the playoffs?
They're not a bad team. Anything could happen. They could win the championship. Anything could happen.
How do you feel about your team going into the playoffs?
Pretty confident. I mean, I love my teammates. They're really good all around. Just excited for the playoffs. Excited for the playoffs, win a championship, hopefully. Everybody gets in. What's the rallying cry for you guys? What are you talking about going into tomorrow's matchups? We're just trying to play defense really well, hit the ball, and help our teammates out. As a leadoff man, you get to set the table each and every game. How exciting is that for you, and what motivates you to do that? Just like to set the standard for the team, try to get on base so they can drive me in. Ricky Gozier, your player of the game. Congratulations, young man. Thank you. I love it. Each and every time I watch videos like that, and I'm a little biased because I did the interview, but
love being able to kind of, a lot of times it's their first interview. A lot of times they're nervous. As a matter of fact, after that game, we did another game, part of our doubleheader on YSN last night, a couple times over. And the young man that actually got the player of the game, I went up to him after and I said, would you like an interview? He said, nope, I'm okay. I'm good. Thank you, though. And I've never had that happen. Never had that happen before. And then his peers kind of talked him into it. And we ended up getting the interview. But that game was way, way exciting. It was everything that I imagined it would be on a Monday night at 7:30. Under the lights, there was a big-time lead. I think it was 9-1 at one point. And Krebs had the lead, big inning in the second inning. And it was JCR coming back, chipping away. And then finally winning the game. And this young man, Weston Ramps is his name. He was able to not only get the win on the mound, but he also got the game-winning hit to drive in the game-winning runs. And when you look at moments like that, that's why I love what I do so much, because he'll be able to have that for the rest of his life, really. And I'm sure that mom and dad I think grandpa was there last night getting really excited about the game, and they can have that forever and have those special moments, and hopefully they keep on going for young Mr. Ramp. So we caught up with Weston after the game. Here's what he had to say. All right, Weston, player of the game. You got the win on the mound, and you also got the game-winning hit. What was going through your mind that last at-bat, driving the ball up the middle on a 3-0 pitch?
I was just a little bit excited when I first hit it. I was nervous because the bases were loaded. I wanted to get a hit to score the runs in, and then when I saw the ball come in, I just swung, and then I went right up the middle.
So those guys score, you're all excited, and then you get the ball to come out and finish the game. You had an intensity like no other. Is it a different kind of mindset going out there to try to close it out?
Yeah.
What was it like?
I was nervous. I didn't want them to hit anything because I was a little nervous if they were going to hit it. So I just came out there, threw it my hardest, and they couldn't hit it.
So you guys get a big win going into the playoffs. Yeah. What can this team do in the playoffs?
I feel like we're going to do good. If we just keep up the confidence like we just did that game, we're going to do good in the playoffs.
I mean, that's a legit grown-up answer. Two of them. Ricky with the first, and then Weston the second time. And Siggy saying interviews of these kids are nothing short of fantastic. How do you not smile while watching that? I mean, anybody that's a little leaguer at one time or another, this is what it's all about, right? This is when I look at the things that I'm very proud of, and I look back at this in 30 years and I say, what was my favorite thing of all? What made you get the kind of warm and fuzzies and feel good about your job? And while there's so many of them, interviewing these kids is at the top of that list. It's just different. It hits you different. And, I'm going to be from my standpoint, I love doing these games, these little league games, kids that are, barely old enough to swing a bat, barely old enough to get the basketball up to the rim. We're going to be doing some football here in this late summer, early fall. That is one of the best things about it. And I love being able to interview kids that are excited, that made a difference on a daily basis. I've known the Gozier family for a few years now. And fun fact, Grady, Ricky's younger brother, probably would have been the player of the game had the other team won last night. And it was looking good because he actually got called up. He's on the what they call the JVs, and he got called up to play with Krebs last night and went 2 for 3 with a walk. So a young man who is able to step into a big moment, and the lights are never that bright or bright enough to kind of shy away from. I'm a huge fan of that. Just a huge fan of that. Oh my. Dan Yeagley, Coach Yeagley, the Hall of Fame coach. Dan Yeagley says, I think it's great that you give these young kids a chance to interview. So awesome. Thank you. And by the way, congratulations. I know I sent a text message your way, and I was so proud of you. And I'm very, very proud of you, Coach. Congratulations over and over again. And it's about that time. If I look at my watch, the coaches' corners, my favorite coaches' corners, will be coming along very soon, and cannot wait to get that started, and cannot wait to meet up with my good friend, Mr. Yeagley, which, of course, might happen this week, given that the Penn Ohio game is coming up, and they're practicing at South Range. So I might get to see my good friend. So hopefully that's the case. Back to the kids, just to put a concluding statement on it, is some people that aren't necessarily fans or parents or whatever of these little league games and these youth games wonder, I was asked the question, why do you do these? Like, it's got to be boring for you. And even last night, like, there was a lot of changes, and probably not putting their best foot forward necessarily for the teams that we had, because playoffs start today. I think that, from our standpoint, it is our duty and our job to never get too big or too full of ourselves or too anything from that standpoint, to not make time for the next generation of student athletes in our valley or in our region or in our country, or however big YSN gets. That is a huge priority for me, because that's how we started. And quite honestly, when you look at all that has become of YSN, and I hope I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here, but it all, like, we had high school football, and everybody does high school football. We had high school basketball, and most people do high school basketball. We had high school baseball. Pardon me. Again, high school baseball and high school softball. And there aren't many that do that. And that's really where we made kind of our hay. But in between there were moments in youth sports that we really, and I mean really, took the valley by storm. The youth baseball, Boardman Community Baseball, following them down to New Albany, following them down to, I'm trying to think of the Cambridge for the state championship, for all of that, wins away from the Little League World Series. We were following. Nobody else was. We broadcasted from 3 hours away. We made the trip. And it was important. It was important that, the Valley knows that there's unbelievable talent, and it starts at a very young age. And it's our job to make sure that we're presenting that. And those moments are kept forever. You look at Weston last night. To be able to be the winning pitcher, come from behind win, and you drive in the game-winning runs. That's special. That's something that you don't just write about. I remember when I was in 7th grade, one of the earliest assignments we had was, what was the best thing that happened to you this summer? And we had to write a 2-page paper on it. Right. Remember? We had, like, the old people in the room, we have to do that. Kids now can just type. And I remember I wrote about a grand slam that I hit probably 2 days into the summer. And I still remember that grand slam, but I still remember the paper that I wrote about that grand slam. As a matter of fact, it's weird. I still have that paper that I wrote about the grand slam. If I had something like YSN, I guarantee you I would still have that. And just, that's what we're there for. That's the exciting moments, to get these kids the recognition they deserve at a very young age, whether it be T-ball all the way up to scrappers. We're going to be there for those moments. And that's what I'm so proud of. I really am. And it's hard to hold back the emotions sometimes in the booth whenever you have those moments happen, and they're going to be special for so long, so long. So looking forward to doing more of those. We'll have the playoffs start tonight. I think we have the games covered tonight as well. It is T-ball night in America, so Little Z is going to be swinging for the fences that don't exist in East Palestine. So I will be out of commission, but the boys will have you covered here on YSN starting at I think it's 5 o'clock, 5:30 or so. We'll have you covered. Craig and Eric, say, "That's a really cold shirt. What you gonna do, brother?" Big Hulk Hogan fan. Big Hulk Hogan fan. So we're going to talk about this divisional stuff, and it's going to be interesting because one of the questions I'm going to have is for coaches and how they adjust. I had the chance to talk to some coaches over the past 48 hours and discuss, okay, you changed from this division to this division. Why? Like, first off, why? Secondly, how does it affect your daily routine? And thirdly, could it have been done last year? Because they do it every 2 years. They do it every 2 years. And my question is, why the wait? Why the pause on having to wait for 2 years as opposed to just yearly numbers? And I have theories, but we're going to have to do a little more scouting. So with that said, we're going to go to Channel 21 WFMJ, the official partner of Your Sports Network, and a story that was written up by our good friend, Mr. Dana Ballish, and it's entitled "Several Schools Change Divisions and Latest Realignment Numbers." So the OHSA does this again every 2 years. Several high school football teams will be in new divisions for the next 2 years. Okay. Hubbard, East, Niles moved down to Division 4 from Division 3. So they actually will be down a division, right? So not playing the bigger school. And in case you're from Western Pennsylvania, I have to explain this to our Western Pennsylvanians all the time, is Division 4 is lower than Division 3. It's the same way as college football, if you think about it. So Hubbard, East, Niles moving down from 4 to 4 from 3. Lakeview goes to Division 5 from Division 4? Is that right? Yeah, Lakeview goes to down to Division 5 from Division 4. Springfield Western Reserve dropped down to Division 7 from Division 6. That's the big one. That's the big one right there that people are talking about. I received 6 messages independently yesterday. Just want to talk about Springfield. Just want to talk about the Springfield Tigers and them moving down to Division 7 from Division 6, where they've been uber successful. The path moves on. Crestview moves down to Division 6 from Division 5. Valley Christian, Jackson Milton are moving up to Division 6 from Division 7. So Valley Christian moves up from Division 7 to Division 6. So here there's, I've been trying to fight that for about 5 minutes. Statewide numbers. Hang on. We're just going to do this. By the way, body armor. 25 schools were moved up to the due to competitive balance. 70 schools were moved up due to enrollment numbers. 24 schools moved down due to competitive balance. And 55 moved down to enrollment numbers. So when you look at that, it's just insane. It's insane to me. When you think about all those that move up and move down, I'm really intrigued about Valley Christian. Really intrigued. Because, as of 2 years ago, really, nobody really was concerned about Valley Christian. And now a certain head coach goes there, one of my good friends, and it's like, okay, we're trading Springfield for Valley Christian. Essentially, it's not the way it goes. It's not how that's played. But essentially, you're trading Valley Christian for Springfield in what would have been, I think, a phenomenal opportunity for those two teams to lock horns and go at it. Springfield being in Division 7 is going to be interesting. And the calls and the messages that I received, it all went from two teams that they want to see play each other in Springfield and Warren JFK. Can you imagine? Just sit back and put on your reminiscing hat and think about having Warren JFK and all the talent that they had and all the grit and determination and, strength in numbers and blue pride and all of that going up against Bo Brungard and that whole, it's hard to imagine, first off, because JFK had such a great run in Division 7, and they're still there. They can still continue this run, and I don't think that that's ever going to stop. But now they've got some interesting teams that they're going to have to go through, and one of them is Sean Guerrero and his Springfield Tigers. And yes, it's without the guy who I think is an absolute legend in Bo Brungard. But you look at that and you start wondering about, what could be, what could happen, because there's never going to be another Bo Brungard. I'm going to put that out there right now. However, there's going to be someone that steps up for Springfield in the short term that is going to make them probably, because it always happens. We said it last year. Springfield's not going to be as good because of all the people they graduated, even though they have Bo Brungard. Trust me, that conversation is going to turn to Springfield isn't going to be as good because they graduated Bo Brungard. Listen, they've still got unbelievable talent coming back. And Ty, if I saw you pop in, if you want to pop back on, I'll let you on. I just wanted to finish that thought. Craig and Eric says Springfield and Warren JFK in D7. Wow, that's going to be good. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. Also, Crestview going to make some noise in D6. I agree with that as well. But here's the question as we go into the break. When you look at this, when you look at these teams, I was told that this could have happened last year. I was told that they could have been dealing with Springfield and D7 last year. Now, that's probably not the same for every team. And honestly, if I'm putting all the cards on the table here, I was told that Springfield probably should have been D7 2 years ago. And there might be something to that. But last year, I've heard that from more than one source. And that's interesting to me. Because state championship 2 years ago in D6. Also, they were in the were they in the state championship last year? I can't remember. My mind's failing me right now because I'm on baseball time. But it was a good run, unbelievable run. No, they weren't in the state championship last year. They fell short. But you look at that, and now some of these D7 teams, they're not playing a team that's essentially able to hold 20, 25 more kids on their sideline than them in Springfield. And now you move down to Division 7. We know that Warren JFK typically holds 20, 25 kids total, if that. And that would be a challenge to most teams. Those are big numbers for JFK because that's what they need. That's what they're looking for. They want kids they can count on. Don't necessarily need 2 platoon players. They want kids that go out there and want to put their hand down in the dirt and knock the other guy on his keister. That's what they're looking for. That's what they're looking for. And Springfield now, I think, has a little bit of momentum going into this season, being D7, being able to play teams like Louisville in week 4. And now, whether it goes good, bad, or ugly, you can possibly get them in the playoffs. I think there's a lot of D7 teams that just bit the cap off their pen. And I'm not saying they're scared. But I'm saying when you have a crew like Sean Guerrero as your head coach and a guy that will make each and every one of those kids run through a wall and play for him the way that those kids do, people could say what they want, disciplined, undisciplined. By the time Sean gets them shaped up this season, they're going to be a scary team. And they're going to be a scary team without that number 21 slinging the rock and running the rock for them. Springfield has been a team that people have counted out every single year that YSN has been around. Every single year. I don't know if it's something in that area where South Range and, Springfield are always counted out. And we'll go to Ty here. Hang on, Ty. Let me put my headphones on. Bring him on. Here he is, Ty Bartell, the co-host of course, YSN Running Point. What's up, man?
Not much. I saw Anthony stop in last week, and I figured if it's open door policy, you're talking something pretty interesting with these divisional breakdowns. I'd stop by and join the discussion for a few minutes, too, because I thought you brought up an interesting point that Anthony and I didn't really hit on, in the fact that they could have really done this last year, too, and this really could be a year-to-year process that the OHSAA does and implements, too, to kind of give us these fresh new matchups on a year-to-year basis. I think no doubt everyone's looking at the football season. Anthony and I were looking at basketball season, too, just getting excited about the new matchups now and the new tournament draws that we could see in these sports. And I think namely that Springfield JFK and football one, I think, is people are looking at. But how about Kirtland moving from D5 to D6 now? And now South Range, that one team, that kind of bugaboo team, is now that roadblock's out of the way for the Raiders now, football-wise.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And you don't think about the other teams, right? We're programmed to think about the 55 teams that we have, but you hit the nail on the head, because now that Kirtland is in D6 and they've been fluctuating, right? They're one of those teams that can basically go wherever they want to go, and they're not going to back down from anybody. And they've had success in both divisions. But you look at that and you start wondering to yourself, okay, so now what? And my personal kind of thought always goes back to, man, if Kirtland was D6 this year, or is D6 this year, could they have been last year? And how much further could Dan Yeagley and that Raider team go with that crew that they had, with Dylan Dominguez in the backfield, but they still have a ton of talent coming back. Billy Skirpak still going to be their quarterback, I would imagine. You still have Aiden Leone on the outside, being able to be that deep threat. I don't understand why they don't do this every year, Ty. I don't understand why they just don't balance the numbers. I know that they can be manipulated, but they can be manipulated in that first year of that 2-year deal as well. So once you're in, just go get as many kids as you possibly can, from an open enrollment standpoint or whatever that may look like. Or if you're a private school, go get those kids that you want. Go get those kids that want to be. And I know that it's a little tongue in cheek when I say go get them, because it's not as easy as that necessarily. But I don't have, in my mind, anything stopping the OHSAA other than it's a lot of work to be able to do this on a yearly basis and keep the competitive balance actually updated.
Yeah, and I mean, that is probably the biggest reason why. It's just because it's a lot of work, because you got to figure, after you kind of sign your name on that proverbial dotted line of that contract, like you say, for 2 years, that second year, it's kind of feast or famine. If you have a large drop in numbers from even graduating from year 1 to year 2, well, tough luck. And of course, if you have a large increase in numbers too, I mean, it works out in your benefactor. But why even have that as a thing people have to, or teams have to battle through, when you can kind of eliminate that and fairly put teams in the division that they need to be put in on a year-to-year basis?
Yeah, I'm really interested in the football side of this. When we're going to take a break here, pay some bills. When we come back, we're going to talk about basketball. And again, more teams, some of the same teams, but some different teams actually are being moved for basketball. We'll talk about that in just a moment here on the Power Hour on YSN. Back in a moment.
It's a new year at Acura of Boardman and Boardman Mitsubishi with huge savings on over 350 fully inspected vehicles. We have cars, trucks, SUVs, minivans, and work vehicles. We don't have it, our team will find it. We aim for 100% credit approval with payments as low as $99 per month. And as always, we'll pay top dollar for your trade. For a great vehicle and a great experience, come see why everyone is stopping by at Acura Boardman and Boardman Mitsubishi.
You're not waiting to see what the world has in store for you. It's more about what you have in store for the world. All you need is the opportunity. All you need are the resources of a large university and the advantages of a personalized academic setting where you can experience new worlds in the arts and sciences, business, and education and make them your own. We are where you shape your future. We are Youngstown State University and proud.
You know, being able to have success on the football field and the basketball court and just every aspect of, my sports career is now documented. One of the greatest things about high school sports is to be able to talk about it for the rest of your life and to look back on the days with my buddies whenever we had some battles, whether it was with, our rival or just another game. And I could go back and look at it and, not only myself, but my family members, my teammates, and it's something that will last a lifetime. My name is Parker Sherry, and my sports network is your sports network.
It's storm season.
I think we're under the gun for some heavy storms over the next couple of hours.
And Storm Tracker 21 is ready.
This is probably the one we're keeping a closer eye on.
On air.
And locally, we're going to have a lot of eyes on our area.
Online.
All right, let's talk high-risk FUTURECAST and the timing of this weather.
On social media and on our app.
Notice we'll have scattered showers on Thursday.
Stay ready with Storm Tracker 21.
The severe weather threat now through around sunset this evening.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. DJ Yoakley, Ty Bartell joins us here on the Power Hour. Thanks, Ty, for stopping by. Appreciate it, giving my my throat a little bit of a rest today. I was having a tough time getting through it, but we're talking about the divisional movement in high school sports in the OHSAA, and we talked about football a little bit. Ty, let's get to the basketball side of things, or I should say winter sports, as a matter of fact, not just basketball. But it affects boys basketball and girls basketball. Well, boys basketball here. I don't have the write-up for girls basketball quite yet, but it is courtesy of our friends at WFMJ, so visit them, WFMJ.com, click on sports. Division I, Howland going from 1 to 2. Then you have Lakeview going from 3 to 2. Brookfield going from 3 to 4. Then you have Valley Christian going from 3 to 4. And Springfield going from 4 to 3. Okay. So help me out with this, Ty.
I think that might be reversed according to that. They might. I don't know if that's because I feel like Springfield was going from D3 to D4.
Oh, you're right. You're right. I read it wrong. I read it backwards. All right.
I was going to say that would make more sense.
Okay. Sorry. I messed it up. So you just, I don't know, reading. That's my bugaboo. Old division, Howland Division 2. Now they're Division 1. Lakeview Division 2. Now they're Division 3. Brookfield once was Division 4, now they're Division 3. Valley Christian, Division 4, and now Division 3. Springfield, Division 3, now they're Division 4. Okay, that sounds more right. So I was going to say, wait a minute, how does Valley Christian get moved up in football but down in basketball? Okay, so all that being said, the thing that it bugs me the most is the numbers are not hard to find. They're not hard to manipulate, or I shouldn't say manipulate. They're not hard to register with the OHSAA. It just seems like 2 years is something that the OHSAA is stuck on. And part two of that question to you is, what makes up a competitive balance? Because if that's the case, how do you put Springfield down and not up? Because they're constantly in the mix of things. We know here at YSN, how does that work? It had to be just numbers, but when they talk about this competitive balance thing, do they just take teams that are constantly in championships and say, well, you're too good for this division, we're going to move you up one?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't quite understand the whole competitive balance thing either, because it's like there's not just certain areas of Ohio that athletes just grow, right? So it's not like, I mean, it seems like that sometimes, but it's certainly not the case. I don't know. Is it because certain schools have more, I guess, so to say, offer to athletes? And I don't know if that triggers anything in competitive balance as far as like classes that are offered too, that are more enticing to bring students in. Maybe, but I don't know. Like that competitive balance is a weird thing because I feel like some teams can get stuck on too. And I mean, yeah, your tradition and your history should play into your team, but I feel like it shouldn't be the contract that's signed for you for teams of the future and teams of right now.
And Kirtland going down I mean, like, if we're talking competitive balance, explain to me. I want to see the algorithm that the competitive balance is based off of, because right now I'm not buying it. It feels kind of like that commercial for Jif, like choosy moms choose Jif. It feels like choosy OHSAA directors choose where they want, these schools to go. Because I got to be honest, when we're looking at Valley Christian, especially coming out of the EOAC, I'm not sure that they're tested enough to be able to battle in Division 6 right now. You know what I mean? Like that they're going up against the Crestviews of the world and thing, which likely they're the similar size. But if that's the case, I guess okay. But I got a real head scratcher about about Kirtland moving down and Valley Christian moving up. I don't get it, and I'm interested to talk to Dolph Carroll about it.
I really was interested when I was talking with Anthony about this too, because what's stopping Kirtland now in D6? There wasn't much stopping them in D5. And I mean, I know there's great teams in every division, but Kirtland's a huge D6 team now. They might be one of the biggest D6 teams now. So what's stopping them from running that gauntlet again in Division 6? And now all these teams that have moved up to Division 6 now have all of a sudden this big roadblock that's going to be in their way, tournaments that they're going to have to get through at some point in Division 6.
Yeah, I'm interested because South Range was another team that I believe they were on the fence about if they were going to drop down, because they are one of the smallest Division 5 teams that there are in the state. And when you look at that, when you see Kirtland fall down, I'm sure Coach Yeagley went, whew, man, I'm glad we had that one or two guys. He's always talking about glad he has all the guys on his team, but I'm sure he's sitting there thinking, wow, glad we had that one or two guys. Maybe we could, not that they didn't make a run before, but maybe we can get that extra push like you talked about, and not have to worry about that team in Kirtland always haunting our nightmares. I want to know. I just want to know, because we talked about the numbers, Ty, the numbers of teams that are up and down, and another stat that kind of pegged me. We talk about this thing all the time, in the fact that these schools, right, are getting smaller. And what I'm really interested to, and I lost the story now, of course. What I'm really interested in is, if my math is correct, the enrollment numbers, 15 schools actually went up, like plus 15, that their numbers went up as opposed to numbers went down. So help me out here. If the school numbers enrollment are shrinking, is it just that they're going to those schools? Is that the case?
You would think that numbers would just line up, right? Because it's like, you can't imagine, like, there's huge influx of athletes. You have track of what athletes are where at all times, right? The enrollment numbers. So, I mean, I feel like you'd be able to easily see, like, if they're missing 15 kids and this school got 15, or this school got 5 and this school got a plus 10, maybe numbers are adding up and these kids are just moving schools.
Craig and Eric make a good point in saying all those years Crestview's dominant football, they ran into Kirtland. Then South Range ran into Kirtland. Guess what, Crestview? They're back in your backyard. That's who you get to go through. It's frustrating. It's as happy as probably the Raiders are yesterday and today. The Crestview Rebels are like, okay, we're going to give it our best shot. We're going to give it a go. But in the back of your mind, you're thinking, wait a minute, time out. Like, why does Kirtland always get to move down? Listen, they win state championships. They're there every single year. Why can't they move up? People, and I know that it's how do I put this politely? Because I do love Kirtland. I do love what they bring to the table. I love the way that their coaches, Coach Yeagley, speaks so highly of them. There's a way in that area that kids can decipher essentially where they want to go to school. And football players typically end up, and there are plenty of them over there, they typically end up at Kirtland for Tiger Laverde. So when you look at the way that it's almost private school-esque, and I don't want to say that, because I know that's taboo, especially in the world of open enrollment, where anybody can pretty much go where they want as long as the school has clicked that box. But Ty, I like, why not move them to D4? Or, why, like, D6, I think, is a little bit interesting. And I know their numbers were very similar to South Range's from the enrollment standpoint, but they had kids from one end of the sideline tied to the other. And it was like watching a pro football team, get warmed up. It was amazing.
It's like when you say the enrollment numbers are 175 boys for D6 teams, right? Like that's the baseline. Those 175 boys, how many of them are made up of football athletes, though, is the big question. And when you look through D6, I don't know if there's, and I don't know if 175 is the baseline number. I'm throwing out a number, but saying like that's a baseline. I don't know if there's a team like Kirtland that has more of football enrollment numbers of those selected boys than Kirtland does. I really don't, going into D6 now.
Okay, so here's where DJ looks like a dummy for the second time today is, Sigler saying has to do with the transfers and when they transfer affects public and non-public differently, multipliers involved. So I do remember having a conversation with an athletic director, and they said that, if this kid moves in post 8th grade, I think it's like counts for 2.5 kids. So that makes sense, but it's still, oh man, is that like, that's frustrating. That's frustrating. And I guess that itself is in a competitive balance to the numbers and the enrollment, but still 100, like let's say that number is correct, 175 boys, right? In your entire school. There's teams that'll have 80 boys that come out for football because they want to come out for football that are in their territory, in their district, so to speak. And let's be honest, parents are starting to understand this algorithm and the math to be able to get their kid in that school district without having to miss a game, without having to cost the school anything. And schools are also, and you're crazy if you don't think this is happening, schools are also able to do those algorithms and say, hey, it's like Rain Man, like boom, then all of a sudden they're in there, and you wonder. We hear stories all the time across the state, across the country, of open enrollment in Western Pennsylvania. This is the interesting part about me. My parents, my in-laws live in Pittsburgh. Having this conversation with my father-in-law, he thinks we're all whacked out. He's like, how do you have kids that just can go wherever school they want? And he went to a private school in Pittsburgh, mind you. He went to North Catholic. He just thinks we're all whacked out here in Ohio, and sports is like the new currency for the Buckeye State, because it's all we live and breathe for. So I'm interested, Ty, what's a school from your standpoint that didn't get moved that you were surprised didn't get moved? Because it's South Range for me. I was surprised they didn't move down to D6.
I was a bit surprised that South Range was too, because I thought they were teetering, as far as my knowledge was, right there, D5 to D6, and I thought they were going to drop. But I mean, looking at it now, is it the worst thing that South Range didn't follow Kirtland right down to D6? I mean, you got to figure. You hate to see it, because one team doesn't make it up in any given Friday night, right? That's what we learned throughout football season. But that window opens up a little bit wider for South Range, you feel like now, as long as they could put together a team, and those guys in South Range too and Canfield will play their heart out for Dan Yeagley, and he will make athletes great. He just has a knack for doing so. Their window opens up a little bit, I think, in this 2-year stretch now, where they might be able to get back to those state semifinals. And Anthony, being the historian that he is, mentioned too, last time that Kirtland moved out of the division from South Range made it to the state semifinals that next year. So history doesn't have a way of repeating itself.
Listen, I believe that was the first year for YSN, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah, I believe it was too. So
I'll take it. I'll go on a run to the district or to the state semis. That's not a problem. Seth chiming in says, funny thing, Kirtland would be in the mix in D4. Last year they beat D4 Perry, who was in the regional semis, and they beat them 38-7. Kirtland should be D4. I don't disagree. Then you got Mike that says Kirtland also beat D2, who finished 7-4.
45-6. I mean, they're a good team. They're a good team, right? And that's just the case we see too. And I mean, girls basketball too, Division II. I know when we see the write up for FMJ, but I mean, I was just looking at OHSAA, like Howland, Canfield going down to D2, like Salem. It reminded me of like when Modern Warfare 2 came out and that line we saw outside of GameStop. Like that's the line lining up for Salem right now in YSN coverage, because you got Canfield, you got Howland, you got West Branch, you got Ursuline that's moved up now. All quality teams. I think that tournament in D2 for girls basketball is going to get very interesting as well.
And we don't mean to kind of overshadow, but it's just one of those things that catches our eye, and naturally from that was the first story I read today on FMJ. I wanted to talk about it yesterday, but we didn't have time to cut it in there. But today, oh my goodness, I slept on it, and it was I just kept thinking to myself after talking to some of those coaches. I'm like, wow, like, do you think that Sean sits there and goes, and I'm sure he does, and he'd beat me up if he heard me say this, so I'm sure I'll get it tomorrow. But wishing he had Bo one more year, like one more year to D7, let's roll. And I know that Pro Logo over at Warren JFK is going to be wishing that he had the Eddie Kiernans of the world and the Iceman and all the talent that he had that is graduating this year from Warren JFK. But I still think to kind of put a cap on our conversation, Ty, that is going to be a featured game if and when it happens in the postseason.
That's what you love about it, right? And I mean, when it does happen every 2 years, it should be every year. I agree with you. But when it does happen, it creates these kind of new, fresh matchups that we can see in the postseason. And I think it's one everyone's kind of excited for, and it gets people talking. And hey, it's what we love too. It's going to get us talking for sure during football and volleyball season.
And I think one of the interesting things to again, just kind of put a close on it, we didn't talk about Crestview a whole lot, but I will say this, is Crestview now has a chance to play some of these teams that they played in yesteryear in the TCL and the ITCL and things of that nature, because they're in D6 now. I mean, can you imagine having Columbiana and Crestview playing the playoffs against each other? These two teams, like, it's forbidden to play each other right now. And two teams that represent the same town have now the possibility of playing that game finally. And I think there's a lot of people that would be excited to see that game. And I bet the gate is off the hinges whenever you talk about the amount of money that flows through there to see those two teams play, to see whose town it is on that given season. So I'm excited for that, should it happen. And I think it should sooner than later. But who am I? I'm just a talk jock here on the YSN Power Hour. One more comment. Kirtland also beat D2 South, who finished 7-4, 45-6. Yeah. Like, this is why I love this show and what we do, is because we have guys that know way more about some of these sports than we do, and just chiming in and showcasing their education and their passion for this game educates us. And it's good topics for discussion. But you know what time it is right now, Ty?
Oh, yeah. It's What's Your Spark time.
It is What's Your Spark time, presented by Joe Dickey Electric. Here we go. It is the Joe Dickey Electric What's Your Spark, presented by our friends over at Joe Dickey Electric in North Lima. You can visit them there on their campus, or you can visit them on the web at dickieelectric.com. Anything commercial, residential, anything electrical, make sure you give a shout out to my guy, Eric Carlson, and his team over at Joe Dickey Electric. Ty, you want to go first or second?
I'll go first, honestly. And I got a positive spark, and I'm just sending it out to all of the announcers of YSN. I mean, a lot of green lit games on the schedule this week. I mean, we've really kind of taken summer by storm here at YSN, and just getting out there covering a lot of games. It's been nice to see the network filled with so many different classes of baseball, softball, and just getting a sports fix still of local sports, even when high school is not in session. And that credit goes all out to the announcers. So I wanted to give a special shout out to them, because they definitely deserve it, putting in good work.
That a boy. I will go with today. I had the opportunity. You probably saw it during the last month or so, that Eric Carlson, Joe Dickey Electric, the president there, was kind of forming a Scouts breakfast and a celebration for the Scouts, and I had a chance to get there this morning very early, but it was worth it. It was worth it all the same, because great speakers, a young man who is an Eagle Scout, got up and spoke, and we had a member of the United States Army come in and talk. It was a lieutenant corporal. So great stuff. And if you don't sign, I was a Cub Scout, So it doesn't count as much, but the same kind of morals and values they base in it. And if your kid's into scouting, they had my admiration, because I couldn't tie a regular knot. I can barely tie my shoes, let alone like all the knots that they learn and some of the things that they do. But it's more than tying knots. It's more than just going outside and exploring. It's becoming a better person and a better human being. So kudos to all the scouts out there, whether they're Eagle Scouts just getting started in the Cub Scouts. My eyes were reopened today to the scouting in this area. And again, just like the talent that we have here on the fields and diamonds and courts, we got so much talent with people in scouting. So I'm looking forward to meeting all of them, or at least as many as I can, because every one of them is so daggone impressive. Just so impressive. Some of the things that I had a kid sit at our table, Ty. He said that he's 14. He can code. He made his own website, and he made a robot out of Legos that picks up things and can shoot it out too. So like, I'm just happy that I can make a website. From my standpoint, that kid is 14 years old. He's got all that already under his wing. So
I absolutely, I'm all for scouting too. I accredit a lot of things that I learned in my scouting experience too. And I mean,
were you a scout?
Yeah, Eagle Scout.
Hey, yeah. To you, my friend, to you.
But yeah, that the experience in scouting goes far and beyond. And I think Eric Carlson's a part of Troop 60 out in Boardman too. So we knew him while I was 22, centered in Youngstown. But no, they were. What I learned, and the values that you learn, it goes far and beyond just outdoor skills. Learning how to be a citizen, learning how to be an American too. It goes far beyond that too, to patriotism, to being a good person, like you said. Great core values too. And I always love supporting the scouts too, anytime they're doing a breakfast or a dinner or anything, trying to help them get out to summer camps.
Well, next year, buddy, you and I will go to the breakfast. So I had no idea. I apologize.
No, you're good. You're good. It's all good too. It was a few years back too, a while back, but no, I always love supporting the scouting community too. They do great things too, especially out at Troop 60 out at Boardman.
Awesome. Well, that's going to do it for our show today. Ty, thank you for stopping by. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime I could stop by, talk a little bit of local sports, I'm always game. So I figured I'd stop by and offer my 2 cents worth. So
appreciate it, brother. It is T-ball night in America for me. For the rest of you, head over to ysnlive.com/live and get some coverage of your favorite local teams here on your sports network. For Ty Bartell, my name's DJ Oakley. We'll see you tomorrow, 3 to 4, right here on YSN. YSN thanks you for watching this presentation of